Welcome to another episode of Correct Me If I'm Wrong. My name is Marcus, and I have three guests with me today. We're going to do something a little differently. We're going to use this as a bonus episode. I've got my dad, Jonathan Pettis. How you doing today?
Good afternoon, good evening. Good to see you again.
Yeah, for sure. My brother-in-law, Trey Singletary. Was good, bro?
Hey, how you doing, man? Glad to be back.
Yeah. We've had you on before. This is your first time actually being on the show, so that's cool. And yeah, we don't have very many people of the next generation above us on the show. Usually there's my listeners are between probably 25 and 40 for the most part. So, maybe this would give give me a different type of audience. You know what I mean? I'm sure people would love to hear what it is that you have to say.
I'll keep that in mind as I frame my responses then.
It's all good. And then also I got my brother, Pat Pettis. He's here, but I guess really not here at the moment. He's got us on mute, but that's all good. But so he'll join us as soon as he can. But we had a family meeting earlier today on Zoom, and we got cut off in mid-discussion, but we were talking about gun control and the what the Winky say. We've had 309 mass shootings since January. I believe that's what he said, something along those lines.
Something along that line. We have had more mass shootings than we've had days, yes.
Okay. And we're only in the beginning.
Only halfway through the year.
Mid-July, right. We're halfway through the year, so we can probably say that is going to double, maybe triple in the next
at least 600
5 months.
Probably half if we stay on this pace.
Right. So basically what we're talking about is what can be done to curb this or to, completely stop it?
Well, there's no will. There is no political will. There's no cultural will to do anything about curtailing the proliferation of guns in our society. There's no admission from one side of the aisle, one side of the political spectrum, to even address the issue of the proliferation of guns. They are fed a steady diet of fear rhetoric. They're afraid of, you need guns because you got to be able to confront crime if it comes to your doorstep. You got to be able to confront illegal immigration when it comes to your doorstep. You got to be able to confront Blacks, that whole replacement theory that they're fed on a constant basis. So they're afraid of being replaced by Blacks, being replaced by immigration, and also with crime. So they're fed that constant diet of being and you have to be afraid. So you have to arm yourself. And the fourth one is a tyrannical government. They have to be armed so that they can confront these things that are coming at them. So they'll never give up their guns as long as they're continually fed that narrative.
Do you think those are narratives that we need to be worried about? Well, as Black Americans, it may be a little different, but
I think we need to have some awareness of where it's coming from. Aside from that, I don't know. We can certainly try and prepare ourselves. But I think we need to understand. I think we need to understand why they feel like they have to be so armed and why they won't give them up.
Because right now in circulation, we have about, from what I understand, about 20 million assault rifles in American homes right now. 20 million, give or take.
Right, I'll accept that number.
And I happen to be one of those owners.
Okay.
But I mean, I got one just in case. I would like to have one and not need it, than need it and not have it. And I've always liked guns. Didn't become an owner until later into my adult life, but something I've always been interested in. And what really made me start to purchase them was when the pandemic hit. because, it was just, nobody knew what was going to happen. It was a lot of stuff, a lot of possibilities that could have happened. People are going to the grocery stores, buying everything up. And is it going to be a point in time to where people start running up in other people's homes because of what they don't have? So my mom was just going in all kind of different directions with it. So I'm like, worst case scenario, because I started out with just a regular shotgun, just for the house. And then, of course, nothing ever happened. But like I said before, I would much rather have something and not need it than to need it and not have it. But, I hear a lot of people ask the question of why do people need, assault rifles? And like, there were some examples that you brought up of why people need to be armed in general. Now, as far as that, you think we should ban assault rifles altogether, or it should
Yeah, I
be?
think they should be banned. I don't see any need for those type of weapons to be available to the general public. Those are military grade weapons. Yeah.
Understood. Anybody else got any takes on it? On gun control in general?
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on? I just got
The Pat, we introduced you earlier, you weren't on, but Pat, my brother Pat has joined us now, and we want to hear what it is that he has to say about it.
I just got off the I just got off the streets of DC. I'm back. I'm sitting, I'm settled now.
All right.
So I caught the last couple of minutes of what was going on. Gun control.
Yeah.
Assault rifles.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you didn't.
I have unpopular Black opinion on that. The hashtag.
Well, let's hear it.
I'm one of those. Unpopular Black opinion on gun control.
Generally
speaking, my position is I do believe we should be able to have access to arms.
Oh, wow.
I don't believe the answer to especially crime, street level crime, is banning guns. I think crime is a result of poverty and a poverty mindset. And when people don't have things, right? And there's the buy-in of the scarcity of resources, people do things that they probably wouldn't do if they felt like they had enough. Okay. And then you mix that in there with trauma and generational trauma and free time, teens and free time, right? You get a recipe with the guns that we see now. But yeah, my unpopular Black opinion, gun control is not the answer to crime. It's giving people opportunity. So that's my unpopular Black opinion about guns.
And I feel that, because where there is poverty, there will be violence. But at the same time, when we're talking about the mass shootings who are usually done by people of the dominant society, I don't believe that they're doing it because they don't have. Me and Dad were just talking about, them wanting to take out the replacers. That has nothing to do with them lacking, of resources. I don't believe. Do you guys agree with that? I think
that it's the hive mentality, right? It's that having that access to other individuals with that extremist mindset, right? And that's what I feel like social media did, which is I feel like the good thing about social media is it connects us together, and it connects especially those affected by the African diaspora. Like it can connect us now. But also on the flip side of that, it connects wackos and jackos and all that. So people on this extremist, conservative, all these conspiracy theories, they're able to get together, create their own kind of like world to where their crazy thoughts just keep getting validated by people in these Reddit message boards, social media, and they'll start believing it and then acting on it. I believe, that's because they're getting fed these types of replacement theory stuff. It just grows and grows to where, some people actually do take it into their own hands.
And I listen to, Pat, and I listen to Tariq Nasheed.
That's your guy, man.
That's my man.
That is
And,
your guy.
there's some other guys, Professor Black Truth and Jason Black. I listen to guys like that as well. And they feel like things like this happen is the Rittenhouse effect. You know what I mean? Where he was able to do what he did. And now, other white supremacist kids are seeing it as, or young adults are seeing it as, they can do the same with no real consequence for it. So I don't know. But I feel like one of the reasons, like you said, you never know when something's going to happen to you. But I know one of the reasons, as far as having an assault rifle, if you have more than one intruder trying to break into your house, trying to defend yourself against that with just a regular 9mm pistol is probably going to be a little difficult for you. Assault rifles, you have less recoil, and you have better aim with them. So if I'm trying to take out 2 to 3 or more people, intruders, a shotgun would be great. That would probably be your first option, but you don't have enough capacity in those. You're getting 5 to 7 rounds possibly in that, and that's not going to be enough. So even if you are just to be using a regular pistol, most people don't have 30-round magazines in their pistol. Most people are going to have 7 to 17 maybe. And is that enough?
Well, I'm like, if you want to start talking about self-defense, I start thinking like, what are we talking about now? Self-defense, you don't need much. If you're talking about an arm for a home, you have a family and you would like to have a gun, that makes sense to me. You don't need all of that. You don't need all of that assault rifle stuff. If it's come down to that, we're talking about 5 people trying to get in your house and they have assault rifles. Something has happened before there. That
they could be coming into your home and they just have regular pistols. They don't have assault rifles, but what I have would better equip me than trying to defend myself with what they have.
Right.
I mean, I feel like that line of logic can go on forever. Like, just can go on.
But we're talking
in a society where people they have access to resources, they usually will not try to take somebody else's stuff. So I don't see any 5 people, 6 people trying to come in at random, trying to come into your house and take your things. So that is an extreme circumstance for me. Most of the time, people, if they're trying to run in your house, they don't want you there. People that are trying to take your things want the easiest path or least resistant path. Like, they don't want anybody in the way. If they're coming in your home, they want you.
Okay. Now, Trey, go ahead. I want you to go ahead and elaborate.
Okay, so there's a lot that's been said that I feel like I just want to weigh on a couple of things. So the first thing is the idea that because when we talk about protection, and then you talk about protecting your home and your family, the statistics, now I'm not going to quote them line for line or right off of a website or anything, but the statistics as far as home invasions, they're not uncommon. They're very common, actually. And so the notion that no one needs to have firearms in order to protect themselves, as if things like this don't happen, I think is a little erroneous. But the other part of this is okay, if we're going to allow people to protect themselves with firearms, we live in a society where people have preferences. And so if I decide I'm more comfortable with an assault rifle, because there are assault rifles that are designed for home defense and home protection. And so if, a sector of the public feels that that's what best serves them, then, you can't make a great case to me that they shouldn't have them because they're military grade. That to me is an argument I don't think I would want to go down. And the other part of that is like, okay, when we talk about the history that like owning guns, especially like for citizens, that's embedded in the history. Now, I'm not saying that things can't change, but that's embedded in the history and it's protected by the Constitution. That's a hard thing.
But Joe Biden says the Second Amendment is not what he said. It's not absolute. I believe that's what he said. Is that meaning that it can be changed?
No. In the sense, no. In the sense that that you could add regulations, which I'm not opposed to. For example, background checks, like more extensive background checks. Now
when you say when people, I'm sorry, when people say back, how much more extensive do you want them to be? Because you can have people who are of age to legally have these firearms, not have any record, no felonies, no anything like that, everything that they need to have to purchase these weapons. Now, how much more? What else do? Do you go? I don't know.
Well,
how extensive it can get.
Just to clarify, I'm not saying that I agree that background checks are going to help their cause, whatever the cause is, in the sense that these background checks are going to help lessen the frequency of gun violence. But my counter argument was, okay, you could take the guns off the streets, people will just kill each other with other stuff. It's not, to me, it's a people problem, not a gun problem.
I agree with that.
Right. So now, again, that doesn't mean that, I think there should be no restrictions. I'm for, in the sense, and I say this very loosely, common sense gun laws, I'm generally okay with, but, when you start restricting, like, for example, if people were walking around with rocket launchers, okay, then we can have the conversation about, is this excessive?
That's not home defense.
Right, exactly. But because a rocket launcher, I think fundamentally is not designed to do that, but an AR is, right? Handguns are. And so, the thing that I think I typically think about is not necessarily that I want to go out and harm someone else, but if someone decides, Pat was saying, if someone comes and they're coming to get in your house, they're looking for you. I don't know if I agree with that wholeheartedly, because a lot of times people are coming for your stuff. It may not be about you at all.
So if they're coming for your stuff, they're looking for the path of least resistance. They're coming in your home when you're not there. Well, 9 to 5. What Kendrick say? 9 to 5. I know it's vacant. They're coming in there because they don't want to catch that case. They don't want to have to kill you. That's my point was.
You're right. Most home invasions are done during the daytime.
Right. So the only reason why I brought that up was to say that you hope that the amateur burglar, or whatever the situation may be, you hope that they do their due diligence and you're not there. But in the case that you are, okay, in the case that that's not the situation, can you protect yourself in your home? And I think that it is reasonable to allow people to do that, within relative restrictions, confines, but to allow people to have their preference. If I don't like handguns and I decide that an AR is what makes me feel more comfortable and that's what I've trained with, I don't know how you make a good case for telling people they can't have what they feel like they need. So
Dad, you don't like assault rifles or
I personally
handguns,
don't.
Or you don't like any of it? You don't want any of it?
I don't think assault rifles ought to be available to the general public. That's me. But we got here because the question is, what can we do about all these mass shootings?
All right.
Now, we can argue back and forth about whether or not assault rifles should be available or not. Everybody has their opinion about that. But what do we do about all these mass shootings? If we're going to say, because it's embedded in the Second Amendment, because we have a right to have them, we can't do anything, then we all need to just get in our minds that we're just going to accept the fact that we've had 300 something mass shootings and we're willing to live with that. If you're willing to live with that, then we're not going to do anything about gun control and having assault rifles available. Nothing. And we just accept the fact that those mass shootings are coming to a town near you.
Now, I do believe in the United States, we had a gun ban. Oh, I'm sorry, an assault rifle ban
Yes.
when Clinton was in office.
Yeah.
It actually, Bush 1 put it in place,
Okay.
and it
Okay.
extended through Clinton's administration.
And when did that end? I believe like 2000 or something like
It
that.
was like 90,
2004.
I think it was like 92, 93 when he put it in place. It was actually as a result of a mass shooting. I can't remember exactly what happened,
I think
but
it ended in
he banned
2004.
assault rifles.
And
But
then
it was only for a period of time.
right. And then the only mass shooting that I can remember that happened during that time was Columbine.
Right.
And I think did that kick off the school shootings, like the wave
That
of the
was
school
the most
shootings?
notable one that kicked off the school shootings. Yeah.
Okay. So now, and if, I don't know the actual percentage, but I believe the percentage of the mass shootings came down a little bit during that ban.
Mhm. That's right.
So yeah, we got about 10 minutes of showing us left on here. But yeah, but we were saying before, I don't ever believe that we will get to the point where people will just go ahead and give up their guns. I just don't see it.
Let me mention this. There's a book called Dying of Whiteness. Dying of Whiteness, in which a researcher did research on this city. I think it was in Missouri somewhere, where they just did away with all restrictions on guns. Let everybody that wanted a gun, you didn't need a permit, nothing, just come get it. And how the incidence of guns and accidents and suicides skyrocketed. What happens, we all law-abiding citizens, but we have disputes, arguments, disagreements, problems, psychological problems, issues that if the gun wasn't there, we wouldn't use it to solve that problem. But because the gun is there, it becomes an instrument to solve a problem that we had that we wouldn't have used before. And they've had suicides just went up, but the people, when you ask people, well, what about the gun? They would say the gun is never the problem. But you have to, as a family member, after the people do all that they need to do, the first responders and the police, and they come in and you have to clean up the brains off the wall and blood off your furniture and everything. And it's disgusting. But it's never the gun that's the problem. But you ought to read the book. It's fascinating. They talk about Dying of Whiteness, how this other state, and I think it was Kentucky, it's Tennessee that didn't expand Obamacare, but Kentucky did, and how that affected the people that lived along the border between Kentucky and Tennessee. But people would rather, and some people were so against the expansion of Obamacare, they would rather die in excruciating pain rather than expand Obamacare, because they were afraid that Black people might benefit from it. So, and that's where the title comes, Dying of Whiteness. I'd rather die white than benefit from something that might benefit Black people or brown people.
Like voting and doing things against your own interests.
They do things against their own interests. Now, I always had hard to understand why do people do that, but now I kind of get it. I understand.
Staying on code, they'll stay on code of white.
And this whole thing about guns is just another part of that psychopathy. I'd rather have the guns than do anything that might benefit those people. So as long as that spirit, and it's a spiritual issue, as long as that spirit exists, we're never going to do anything about it. We're going to continue to have these mass shootings, continue to see people crying and going to funerals, and it's gonna come closer and closer to home. But we ain't gonna do nothing about it. And
I agree.
these kinds of discussions are happening all over America.
Right.
Mhm.
And when in Sandy Hook, when them little blonde haired, blue eyed babies got slaughtered and they didn't want to do nothing about it, I knew there is no
There's
answer
nothing they're
to
gonna
that.
do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because usually, like when they start losing life and money, they usually want to do
For
something
me,
about it.
the answer is get rid of the guns. But that's a simple, but it's a difficult solution.
I was
to
you're
implement.
right, and it can be done. Like I don't know to the depths of it, but I'll insert it into the conversation. In Japan, their former prime minister just got killed, assassinated.
With
He
a
was just out on a
homemade gun.
campaign trail, right?
Mhm.
He got killed with a homemade gun.
Right, a homemade gun because there are no guns in Japan.
Right.
They can't have them. I
Yeah.
think the police don't even have guns. So, and it's so rare. That's why it's so shocking because there's no gun violence.
Mhm.
And so,
Australia got rid of their assault rifle, and they don't have mass shootings like we have.
I think Canada's working on a gun freeze.
Yeah.
At the moment.
are humans, are the general public, the masses of people responsible enough to handle assault rifles?
And I feel like the majority, with there being 20 million plus assault rifles out there in circulation right now, the majority of us aren't mass shooters. You know, that's not our mentality. So, I mean, you do have your few nutballs who want to go out and do it, but I feel like the majority of us are responsible assault rifle owners. That's the way that I feel.
Yeah.
Most
The only problem with that is when it goes wrong bad.
That's
With
true.
assault rifles. When it's a handgun,
But I mean, when you if you had to,
it's not as bad.
These
Like,
things
the
don't
numbers,
happen
though.
by accident. You know, when you look back in the 80s, and you all aren't old enough to remember, but I do, how the proliferation of cocaine, crack cocaine, and how it just
I saw the
devastated
documentary
our community.
Cocaine Cowboys, so that pretty much took back, you know, especially a lot of the shootings in
And
Florida.
what do they come out with? Just don't say no. But you add in
Don't say
cocaine,
no as they pump them in, though, huh?
right, as they pump them in. But when you have a proliferation of something, it's going to have an effect on your society. You have a proliferation of guns. We have, by nature, we're human beings, we have conflicts with each other. Well, I got a gun, I got a conflict, this will solve my problem. But if I don't have, and maybe my problem is I wanna kill a lot of people. I don't like those kind of people that go to that church. The way to solve my problem is I can go in there, go to their prayer meeting, and after the prayer meeting, I can just slaughter everybody.
And with that being said, do you feel like we need, since we know these type of people can have guns, these nut jobs, in places like that, church, wherever, should be prepared for these type of situations? Like, how many
so
churches
give
do you
them
know
guns
of
too,
that have,
right?
how many churches do you know of that have armed
Now
security?
flood everybody with guns.
I like Australia's way. Get rid of the assault rifle. But you want to arm everybody, you know, that's the gun manufacturer's solution. Let's let everybody have a gun. That'll make a safer society. Let's try that. See how
we got about a minute and a half left. But I do believe,
give our final thoughts.
I do believe that the more people, if I know you have a gun, the chances are less likely that I'm going to try, because the way that I look at, I assume everybody has one already. So when you feel like everybody has one, that's going to deter me from wanting to do certain things. You know what I mean? Knowing that everybody has one. So do you think that makes,
because that's where we're going? We're going to see how that works.
I mean, because there are a
The
lot of
Wild
states
West,
now.
man. That's the
There's a
Wild
lot-
West.
Nah,
Listen,
There's a
man.
lot of states
When we
now
got an
that are-
issue, what's gonna happen is when we're gonna got an issue, we're gonna go outside, we're gonna walk 10 steps from each other, turn around and shoot. That's that Wild West, that frontier justice type of ideology. Everybody has a gun. We have a disagreement. Well, what you want to do about it? If you don't want to do it, shut up, stop talking, or we can do this.
But I feel like the rational people
That
still,
I'm not feeling
still
that
know
all the
that
way.
if I do this, there's a chance that I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison.
People's not thinking like that, man.
I feel like that.
People not thinking
not.
like that.
I feel like the majority of
Not
us
in the
do.
heat of the
No,
moment.
not in the
Okay, I feel that.
Somebody
I get
cut you
that.
off in traffic. In the heat of that moment, you remember, you know, the anger that you feel when somebody get in front of you in traffic after you sitting in traffic in a long time and somebody cut in front of you and that anger you feel.
Happened to me